What's up guys, Skip You Kinda here, and a few days back I made a video on the full auto deagle they added to Modern Warfare 2, and mentioned how excited I was to finally be able to get to use something so utterly impractical yet so cool in a game. Because as mentioned before in that last video, I always thought like a full auto deagle in a game would be just downright cool, like kinda like how a full auto M1 Garand would be. And mind you, this was well before I saw they actually had like real ones, like many years before that. Like no joke, I was playing Counter-Strike Condition Zero when I was like 6 having that thought. Anyways, full auto deagle cool, but you know what else is pretty dang cool that they also added? The Tech 9. Now, personally in real life, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about these things. Like, in this configuration, I'm not much a fan of them, but were they to do some cool stuff like add a stock or a longer barrel, now we're getting into the cool simplified subgun look. Which is actually where this gun started off, to no surprise, was as a simplified subgun known as the Interdynamic MP9. Although that project ended up failing, and with a bunch of whole other little scenarios, they ended up being sold on the civilian market. Like, honestly, if these guns actually worked in real life, they don't. I'd easily buy one, pay that $200 tax stamp bullshit you always gotta pay, and make something, like, real freaking cool like this. But anyways, back to the gun in-game. The gun genuinely reminds me of something like a ppsh with a little less power to it. Like, you pull the trigger and it just becomes a flat-out bullet hose. To add to that, it also doesn't just spray bullets. Like this piece of shit. This thing actually does some damage. Like, I'm having zero issues with this thing getting, like, around 2 to 3 kills a mag. The standard 32-round mag, that is, there's ones with higher capacity. And I did get to play around like a little bit with a 72-round drum a little well after recording this footage, and that thing really is insane. But when it comes to like the standard 32-rounder that it starts you off with, you know, honestly, the gun just flat on its own with no attachments isn't bad at all, depending on how and like what map you're using it on. Like, obviously, like a gun like this is gonna run perfectly fine on shipment. I mean, you know, to be fair, practically every gun runs perfectly fine on shipment, but I've given this gun like a little bit of playtime in other game modes like Invasion, mainly using it as like a secondary to my sniper rifle, where I would need to like start moving around. And honestly, even at medium range, when I did have to use it that far away, it wasn't that bad at all. Like, I mean, as mentioned, close quarters and this thing fucking shreds, but even at medium range, I wasn't having too much of a problem with it. Now, do note that when I was using it on like Invasion, for the most part, I was using it with various attachments, like mainly the ones you see right here in this footage, and then also I was throwing like a red dot on it. But there was a few games on Invasion specifically where I did run this bare bones. I kind of just wanted something a little more than a pistol to be my secondary for when I was running around with a sniper rifle. And at the same time, I didn't really feel like throwing the overkill perk on, so I kind of just saw this and I was like, hey, you know what? I'll just throw it with the kit. Like, I would later throw a bunch of attachments on there, but yeah, I kind of just grabbed it and threw it on there. And to be fair, while I was using it as my secondary on Invasion, those maps were like that I was playing on where I had no attachments on. The only real gunfights I got into with it were fairly close quarter, so none of that medium range stuff. With attachments, like, I already had attachments on, you know, when I was doing more medium range engagements, so it probably would work in more medium range without any attachments, but I didn't try it out myself. But all in all, I'll say it's pretty cool because, number one, obviously this gun has a very unique look to it. It's not like your typical tactical, like, you know, the standard stuff that's all in this game. Like, in essence, it just has that, like, old-style open-bolt submachine gun look, because, well, that's technically what it is. And then, of course, it doesn't just look unique and cool, like, this thing actually works pretty damn well. But anyways, I think that is gonna do it for this short little video on one of the new guns they added to this game. Make sure you stay tuned for a future video on this gun, where, much like every other gun from this game, we'll be going over the real-life version of this gun. Stuff like why it exists, how it works mechanically, all that good stuff. I will see y'all next time.